Hello, I'm Tasuku. Today we use Japanese as an official language in Japan, but it isn't established by law. We think it means that English can be an official language in Japan. So our topic is using English as Japanese official language. In Japan, a movement which borrows English into our life is encouraged. In fact, some Japanese companies like Rakuten and Uniqlo use English as a company official language. In addition, English education in Japan will be changed. Now, English education starts on grade 5 of elementary school in Japan, but it will start on grade 3 on 2018. We think it is not so bad. However, if it keeps changing, English as Japanese official language become real. In the worst case, Japanese will be lost. And so we thought about it.
Hello everyone, I'm Chihiro. I'm gonna talk about Japanese disappearance. We three think about the 8th level of Japanese disappearance. This is on the premise that 1. The ability of English skill for Japanese is the equal to non-opposition. 3. Japanese is disappeared if it's not spoken by people who are younger than 40 years old, which reflects that experts said languages are disappeared if less than 40 years old people don't speak. This is the 8th level we think about. We were considering which is the first to introduce teaching all subjects in English. Universities and high schools over junior and elementary school though decided future teachers would need experience of teaching and learning in English at first. After compulsory education in English, English would be the second language in Japan. English would be everywhere, step by step. And lastly, it will be the official language. And we speak in English even daily life conversation. We think the number of translators would increase before English would be the second official language. On the other hand, it would be decrease after English would be the one, as translation wouldn't be necessary for people who have enough ability of speaking English. It will take approximately 70 to 100 years to disappear Japanese, as 20 years old man took lectures in English, for example. Like level 3. He grew up when the official language in companies and educational facilities. Level 6 is English. He'd get married and have children. His children would grow up when English would be the official language. Level 8. They'll speak in English each other and feel comfortable with it. although his mother language would be Japanese, there would be no ways to use in Japanese, then he'd speak only in English as well. English has came into Japan since World War II ended, like 100 years ago. Japanese is still the major language in Japan. But if we try to disappear our mother language, it doesn't take even 100 years, which means personal life like 70 years may be enough to take Japanese away from this country. To be honest, some people who have a big influence mentioned it that we need people who are able to speak in English without struggling. So, where are we now in that level? Teaching English in English for elementary school students is already started, and some of the lectures in universities and companies are required in English. However, the rest of the statements in that level hasn't started yet. In the nutshell, we missed the level 4 or level 3, but introduced the level 6. It's so weird.
So, we had debated about if Japan introduced English to our life in stepwise way, and we should think about what will happen if we start speaking English on specific levels. First, if we start speaking English as a second language, we will have some benefit and difficulties. We may have more amount of foreign tourists because all we were able to introduce Japan in English. We think it will be a benefit for both English-speaking tourists and Japanese sightseeing industry. Furthermore, translation work may increase because we had to make 2 languages information for every work, and we wonder if this factor could be an advantage or disadvantage for translators because it will depend on the amount of their works. Second, if we speak English as a first language, Japanese people's life will be completely changed and it will affect Japanese culture seriously. Our expectations are like this. First, we will lose foreign tourists because Japanese culture would get less attractive for losing Japanese language. One of the other problems is about the public order. Now, Japan is one of the best safe countries in the world. But if all we speak English, refugees will come and it will be difficult to keep the quality of peace in Japan. By the way, we asked our seminar members this matter and had a time to discussion whether all Japanese people need English so seriously. Many of us says it's not necessary for all people to be able to speak English. Introduce a word-strong language only because it is useful for diplomacy is very dangerous because it causes invention of other languages and cultures. This time, we simulated distinction of the language. We found that there would be a great deal of matter if we give up our language. Of course, it's just a simulation, but we think it's not a completely lie because there is the way to thinking English imperialism. It's invading Japan steadily and slowly. We should think about what is the good way to keep the diversity of languages and cultures.